Let's begin our keynote session 4 for today. Our speaker for this session is Mr. Victor Wang, the co-founder of Zhen Fund. Mr. Wang is also Zhen Fund's Director of Entrepreneurial Thought and frequently advises portfolio companies on their mission and vision. Prior to Zhen Fund, Mr. Wang was a co-founder of New Oriental Education and Technology Group, the largest provider of private education in China. He served as the vice president and chairman of the board of directors at New Oriental and established New Oriental's spoken English division. Mr. Wang also hosted a popular TV show called From the Word to the World, which was widely broadcasted on more than 30 channels in China. Let's welcome Mr. Wang.
Good morning, MIT. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be invited to open today's session by giving a talk about what is happening nowadays to the landscape of startups in China. As far as I can remember, barely 2 years ago, when entrepreneurs and investors here in the US commented on the nature of Chinese startups, the very word that would slip out of their mouth was copy. Copy from US. Period. It seemed that the Chinese entrepreneurial talent was only fostered and formed to imitate rather than innovate. However, this is not true anymore. The landscape of Chinese startups is changing day by day from that of simple imitation to that of disruptive innovation, slowly but surely. The new generation of Chinese startup entrepreneurs is providing more and more fresh instances of this fundamental change. Now, I'd like to share with you 3 stories with the hope that you may have a glimpse of such a change. Story 1, thinking deep for the past. 1 week before the last Chinese New Year, 3 young people from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University came to our office at Zhen Fund in Beijing to give us a short presentation on their project called Mailtime. What they wanted to do was to create an app to save the email system, to save the past. As we know, email was probably the most crucial tool in developing the internet in the late 80s. And your school, MIT, exhibited the first CTSS, that is, compatible time-sharing system, in 1961, 1 year before I was born, that early. This system allowed many simultaneous users to log in from remote dial-up machines to store online files on diskettes, and also to encourage users to share information in a variety of ways. The birth of email was in 1965, when multiple users of a time-sharing mainframe, that is a first-generation computer, started to communicate remotely and electronically. However, with the advent of new media, such as Facebook, Twitter, Weibo, and WeChat, email has seemed to begin to lose its great significance as an important communication tool. But when we think that the ocean of information of humanity has been in existence over the past 50 years in the form of email, it does make a lot of sense to do something about it. They told us that the new app, Mealtime, would be designed to change the way in which users interact with email and make it more like text messaging. In a word, it would put your email into a format very similar to text messaging. At Zhenfand, of course, we were very much moved by their passion to save the past and told them that we would invest in them if they were willing to leave Hong Kong and to try to test their startup idea in US, the very place of origin and the largest market of email. Exactly 1 week after the Chinese New Year, we received a faxed copy of their one-way flight tickets to San Francisco. We knew by the time that these guys were determined to succeed. Mealtime was selected as a finalist for TechCrunch Disrupt San Francisco 2014 Battlefield. This is the first time for a Chinese startup to win this glory. On September 26th, in its morning program, Your Money, Fox 26 spent almost 5 minutes introducing this new app, Mealtime, to the US audience for the first time, saying that this new app terminates the tedious and sometimes annoying experience of email users. This is how their app looks like. Oh, this is another project we invested in. This guy was receiving a first place award from Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple. But this company is doing drone. Of course, drone, a lot of companies now in the world are producing drones, but this company is going to shock the world in a couple months to probably present the first man-carrying drone in the world. Okay, that's their secret. They don't allow me to tell, but I have to. I'm sorry to their ghost. Okay. Story 2. Thinking different for the present. This slide shows the front of the fleet store of a funeral service store. Okay. This story is very interesting. I have to share with you. 2 years ago, Zhenfand invested in a young science major graduate from Tsinghua University. His startup dream is to disrupt the practice of Chinese traditional funeral service over the past several hundred years through the introduction of high-tech, the mission of hospice care, that is 临终关怀, right? Hospice care, okay? That embraces the idea of comfort and dignity at the end of life and a new philosophy of death that views death as a natural process. You know, in Chinese culture, the very concept of death is always related with that of bad luck. So, it is not hard to imagine the scene. When this young man told his father, his beloved, his dear father, that he would, about his startup plan, a slap in the face was the answer he got from him, the real slap in the face. His father told him that he would disown him if he dared to start such a business. What a pressure, right? Guess what was his reply to his father? He said, "Then disown me now." His unforgettably suffering experience at the end of his mother's life ignited his courage and determination to make it his lifelong commitment to address the physical, practical, emotional, social, and spiritual needs of the patient, their family, and their caregivers. Of course, Bob and I gave him the seed money he needed. We even helped him change the name of his startup company from Falling Leaves, to Parameter, meaning the world beyond. Okay. You see, these two words literally means the world beyond. We even helped him to contract a world-famous designer, the art director of Ann Lee's Academy Award-winning film, Life of Pi, to design his first fleet store in Beijing. Now, if you have the chance to go to Beijing and you happen to go to a street near a hospital, a very hospital called Jishuitan, water collecting hospital. I don't know why they call that. They collect a lot of water there. Maybe the surgery accident. You will definitely see their store. The very interesting thing about the store is that a lot of young people or old people keep pouring into the store after drinking coffee and tea and turning the pages of colorful catalogs. All of a sudden realize that it's not the right place for them to get in, but it's too late for them to get out. Then a lot of young people start to apply for positions at this company. It's a very interesting thing. This is really happening in China. Now, the last story, story 3, thinking big for the future. Mr. Yong Zhao, or in Chinese we call him Zhao Yong, designer of Google Glass, quit his job at Google Research and came back to Beijing last year. He founded his company called Deep Glint, which aims at the commercialization of 3D computer vision and pattern recognition technology. His startup dream is to make computers see, really see, and understand the real world in which we live. His vision, passion, and integrity has attracted many young talents from the most prestigious universities in the world. Among them are Mr. Bofei He, or He Bofei, an MBA graduate from Stanford, and now co-founder and CEO of Deep Glint, and Ms. Xinyi Chen, in Chinese, Chen Xinyi, a Princeton undergraduate student who is the first Chinese citizen to win 20 under 20 fellowship. Now, the most important, or the important clients of this new startup company now include 3 of the 4 top Chinese banks. Unbelievable. And even NYPD has also shown great interest in their future products. Of course, their first product will be deployed and installed at Tiananmen Square. The NYPD probably will have a store somewhere in New York, and Boston might go to see them also. Think deep, think different, think big. No matter whether they choose to go to Silicon Valley, choose to stay in Beijing, or choose to move back to China from the US, young Chinese startup entrepreneurs have started to show to the world their innovative energy and talent. When you come to Beijing nowadays, you will probably surprisingly find that there are startup cafes almost everywhere. More and more office space has been turned into incubators. Young people exchange their daily greetings by saying that, have you started up your business instead of have you eaten? Beijing is quietly becoming the startup capital of China. Even though sometimes the terrible smog in Beijing might blur your vision. I'm sure that you can still see very clearly with your mind's eye that the old age of copying and imitation is declining, and the new age of creation and innovation has dawned. Thank you. Any questions? Chinese usually don't ask questions. Yeah, any questions? Let me finish the slides. This, now DeepClient, this company is moving very fast. Okay, started from this year. They have finished 2 rounds of fundraising, and their first product will be on the market very soon, probably this month. And this, how their company looks like. Okay, so I'm ready for your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wang, for your very inspiring speech. So you just mentioned that the Beijing has become kind of a center for the innovation and startups. So I wonder, do you think, because Beijing is kind of like political city, so
forget about it. Just like you forget about the smog.
So why do you think like Beijing is like the center of the city? As you can also see that there are like tons of other cities is also like have their like innovation. They created like a development and innovation zones. And do you think like which city would you see would be the best city for the startups? And do you still think that
Boston.
Beijing would continue to be? I mean, in China, do you think Beijing will continue to be the greatest city for the startups to reside in? Would you think that is there any like future potentially like limitations from the politics that will affect Beijing to be the best city, at least at the present? So.
Okay. Well, the interesting about Beijing is that if you decided to go to Beijing, forget about 2 things: the political thing and the air pollution thing, right? Of course, now they have a new thing called APAC Blue. That's what you can expect, but still, APAC Blue is quite a luxury. You cannot possibly afford to get. Well, I should say Beijing, by nature now, in terms of innovation and creation, is very similar to Silicon Valley. As I mentioned, almost every corner you can find a cafe. When you walk in, people talk about the business ideas over a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Just like what I saw in Silicon Valley, in Tel Aviv, in Israel, and all the other cities of innovation and creation. Why Beijing has become the #1 city of Chinese startups? I think there are several reasons. First, there are so many universities that are in Beijing. So every year, most of the talented, or most talented, of course, probably not talented as you MIT guys. That's why they have to stay in Beijing. Now you are here. Most of them graduated from universities. They will get into the market. So Beijing has a big pool of talents. Secondly, most of the venture capitals are in Beijing, or at least the most top venture capitals are in Beijing. So it's very easy to access the capital, the money. And thirdly, Beijing is more like the United States in terms of it's a melting pot of different people. Now it's very interesting. In Beijing, there is a district where you can find a lot of Koreans. There is a place where you can find over 300,000 Taiwanese. You can even find, an area where people from, all over the world reside. So it is a very interesting place. You can find different people, different ideas, a lot of money, and, and besides, the smog help also contribute to this, I think, because in such a weather, you have nothing to do. You can only think, right? It's just like the future of any startup. You cannot see very far, but you have to walk, you have to do things, you have to dream, and make your dream come true. So that's why I think in the long run, Beijing will still be a very important city for startups. So if you want to come back to China, I think Beijing is still your first choice. Yeah.
Thank you. This is a really great answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
A lot of incubators, Yeah. Another question?
Hi, my name is Bowen, and I'm currently an analytics professional. So you spoke a lot about the new innovation that's happening in China. And I was wondering if you can also speak a little bit about the imitation trend that's in China, and how do you perceive the trend will eventually shift from the imitation to the innovation, and what do you think things that the VC as well as the innovator in China can do more in that regard?
Yeah. Talking about imitation, I still think that imitation is the mother of creation. Do you agree? Okay. If we don't imitate how birds fly, we'll have no airplanes. If we don't imitate dolphin or whales, we'll have no submarines. If we don't imitate apes, we cannot stand here today or sit here today. So I still think imitation is very important, at least the first stage, I should say, of creation. But simple copying cannot really make your business a valuable business. So what I see now, what's happening in China, is most of the important American companies, or I should say startup companies, they will not hesitate to go to China and found the joint ventures with Chinese local people to immediately, shift their model of business to the Chinese market, like Blink, this company, like LinkedIn, and people talk about Facebook probably moving to China with its first joint venture at the local level. So I should say this kind of shift from simple copying by Chinese people of the US model is hard to continue. Instead, two things. You either immediately move from US to China to take the market share by doing your business or by doing your business with Chinese locals, or you should really think of some brilliant or innovative ideas than to implement it in China. So you have only two choices now. So I think given this situation, I think VC, if you come from US, you should also immediately find local Chinese people instead of you just think in your way here, because in most cases, it won't work that efficiently if you just directly go to China and thinking how you should invest in the US market. Because sometimes Chinese people, they will think differently from their peers in the US. For example, at Gem Fund, whenever we talk about making an investment, we cannot see any numbers. Sometimes we don't see any business plans. When you ask the founders, they don't know what they're going to do. But we still have to invest, because at Gem Fund, our philosophy of investing is we trust the people. So as long as we think the people are worth of our trusting, we will not hesitate to put in the money. So this kind of quick action is really, really the practice for many, many investors now in China. I'll give you an example. Several months ago, at an event at a Microsoft incubator in Beijing, after listening to a presentation of a young guy, I immediately decided to invest in him $1 million without even knowing what this guy was really doing in details. But fortunately, my bet was correct, because last month, the first product that he launched attracted a lot of traffic on the internet, and it has almost 500,000 users now, just within 1 month to use his new app. So speed and understanding the mentality of local Chinese are the two important factors if you really want to try to make a change in China. So that's probably what I can share with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So,
One more question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. So that would be the last question.
Yeah. One more question? Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Wang.
You want to come or?
No, I'm comfortable here.
Okay.
So I have a question. Among all the projects you have invested in China, where most of them are the service-based, like the funeral service you mentioned, or they like the high-tech production domain business? If so, what would be the cause of such difference, and what would be the trend of such difference in China?
Well, since the inception of Gem Fund in 2011, the end of 2011, we have invested in around 160 companies, startup companies. And I don't see there is a particular field or sector that we are interested in. We invested in TMT, online education, offline education, catering service, funeral service, baby and mother, a product service, and cosmetics. What else? And even some Bitcoin-related startups. And I don't know how to use it in the near future. So you can see these companies do vary. And what we believe, when we talk about trends, how do I understand trends? I think trends, now in Chinese, the word for trends, I think, has probably much clearer meaning than than that the English word will convey. Because in Chinese, when we talk about trends, it has two meanings. First, the direction. Second, the energy accumulated around this direction and to reach a momentum. So, if this is how I define the word trend or trends, I should say, at Zhen Fund, we only care about whether the founders or the founding team can have a very deep understanding of the nature of humanity. Because when you understand very deeply the nature of humanity, you very quickly identify the real demand of humanity. When you successfully identify those demands and you provide an efficient and quick response or solution to the demand, then you find the trend. That's how we make our investment. That's the philosophy behind our investment. So at Zhen Fund, we have a model. We believe. We believe what we don't know, but actually we believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.